Um, those of you who know my work know that I may not have the sunniest disposition when it comes to the state of contemporary fashion. But I fell in love with fashion. When I did fall in love with fashion decades ago, betraying my age, Belgians were really who I fell in love with, and particularly the Antwerp school. And seeing the successive generations that came out of the school have been an incredible boon to me. I keep coming back to Antwerp year after year, and the city never ceases to amaze me how creatively it punches way above its weight. And this morning we toured the fashion department of the academy, and again, seeing the work of these kids and how creative they are, how incredibly creative they are, again, made me feel way more optimistic than I do during average fashion week. And so I'm here to speak with two of Antwerp products of Antwerp schools who are really brilliant designers who do incredible work and have done incredible work behind the scenes for other people and have gone on their own to found their own brands. And we're going to talk about their path and also the good things and also the challenges they face. When I interview people, I always pretend that I know nothing about them. So that's what we're going to do now. So the first thing I'm going to ask Meryll and Stephanie, tell us, how did you fall and how did you decide to become designers? What led you to that in the first place?
I guess I'll start. Yeah. Let's say that the interest in clothes was there from a really young age. I still have memories when I was buying with my parents a dress for my first communion, for instance. And actually, funnily enough, we sell at that store now because it went through some changes, but it's still there. So that's really nice to think about. And then I wanted to be an illustrator since a very young age, so that was really like my path. And then, of course, when you start drawing, it's small figurines, and then over time, the figurines start wearing clothes, and then over time, you start to realize it's an actually career path, and you discover magazines and TV shows, etc. So I guess for me, that's how it started.
Yeah. And how did you decide on the Antwerp Academy, on that school?
Well, I mean, I was interested in studying either in Antwerp or maybe Central St. Martin's. At the time, those were the two big names. And then I don't know how it happened, but Antwerp was the right choice for me at the time. So, but I went through, I mean, we both went through a few detours before ending up there, so.
Yeah, tell me about those detours.
Well, maybe you want to, yeah.
We went together to law school.
True.
To law school?
Yes.
Really?
Went to the same university.
Okay.
Me, the first year, I completely failed. And that's when I realized, like, it's not worth, like, trying to do this right, because this is actually totally not what I want to do. And that's when I started thinking of another future for myself. So I thought of fashion, because it was a world that was always fascinating to me. I don't think it was a real calling since I was young, because my parents were very surprised when I announced them that I wanted to study fashion. But they were very supportive. So I also wanted to go to the Antwerp Academy, because it was like the best school in the world. I failed twice the entrance exam. Meryll also failed.
Wow.
But yeah, I was very persistent. That's really where I wanted to go. And I finally got in. And very happy.
Same year.
And we were together at school. So it was a great beginning of a career.
Yeah.
So failure is an option.
I mean, yes, many of them, I guess.
Only makes you try harder next time.
Yeah.
And what was the process like in the academy? What did you guys learn being there? How did it shape you both in your ideas of what would you want to do as a designer?
Do you want to?
But for me, it was a bit different because I studied fashion design at school, and I ended up now I'm doing accessories. So school was a very good start. To start learn how to create. But I have to say, after school, I did a lot of internships, and that's really where I got to understand how it works. And one of my last internships, I got to design accessories. And there I really had like a kind of a eureka moment saying, oh my God, this is really what I love to do. And it seems it was so much easier and natural, because I have to be honest, at school I was a bit struggling, but I really wanted to do fashion. So I was like, okay, we have to do it. And then after that one internship, I got another internship at Margiela in the accessories department. And that's where I learned everything.
Yeah. And Meryl, how did you get onto your career path after the academy?
After the academy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you can tell us.
No, it's, no, I didn't. I can't hear very well. No, I guess we were in third year, and I was freaking out a little bit that I was going to get to the masters, and then I didn't have any experience, or a resume to show to get a job. So I sent out in third year my CV everywhere. Not everywhere, a few houses. And then actually I was with you coming back from school with a giant IKEA bag. And then I got a phone call from an unknown number, and that was someone from Marc Jacobs, like calling about an internship. So, and then I had the stupidity to say, I'm on the way to my house, I have a giant bag, can you call me back later? And then it was the longest hour of my life because I didn't have the phone number to call back. So that was very stressful, but then it all worked out.
Wow. Okay.
So that's how it started. Got there for the summer, and then I didn't know, but they were looking for someone for a while, and we clicked very well with the team. And then that was the beginning, and I ended up staying for 7 years in New York at Marc Jacobs.
Yeah.
So that was
And how was your experience there? Also, like living in New York, working in New York, and working for a big brand, like right straight out of school.
Yeah.
Were you terrified?
I mean, I was, and I was 23 years old, so you're a bit, you just go with the flow, I guess. But it was my big dream. It was my biggest dream. So to work for him specifically, whether it would have been at Vuitton or at his brand, I didn't care. So it was a miracle come true, to be honest. And I just immediately felt good and at home, and all the aesthetics aligned, and not all, but a big percentage, let's say. And I just felt really happy there. And it was great to be in New York because I like living abroad too. So that was nice.
Was it a big change living in New York?
I mean, I really thrive in a foreign environment.
Okay.
So for me, it gave me energy, and it's something that I would love to experience once more in my life, to live somewhere else. So no, it was. I mean, I was there from 23 years old to 30, so it's like, I mean, it's just like one big playground in a way. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. And Stephanie, how you had the internship at Margiela, and then you ended up being the accessories designer.
And sorry.
After your internship at Margiela, you went full time at Margiela as an accessories designer.
Yep.
What years were those? What years?
Oh, you mean?
You were like.
It was already 2013. No, 2011. Yeah, so I did an internship of 6 months, and then they hired me. So I was super, super happy. Back in the days, I didn't know so much about Margiela, so it wasn't really a dream to go there. But once I was there and I got to know what the house was all about, everything that Martin invented, then I realized what a chance I had to be there. So I stayed there for 4 years. So when I was there, Martin was already gone. And then at the last, John Galliano arrived. So then they asked me to stay as a freelancer, to do the sunglasses and the fine jewelry. And then like this, I started to do freelance for other brands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I know your story, but I think you can you tell the audience like which brands have you worked with designing accessories for? Because you've done a lot in a
I've done
very
a
short
lot,
time.
and I'm still doing a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, after Margiela, I started freelancing for Vêtements and Y Project. Quite easy because I met them at Margiela. So when he launched Vêtements, I was like, oh wow, this is fantastic. I really want to work for him. So I asked him. Same with Y Project, with Glenn Martens that I already knew from school. So I was very lucky to have met these people. Then I did a quick stop at D'heygere for 1 year. So that was a full-time job, which was a very good experience, but maybe less creative challenging. So after that, I decided to pick up the same clients, find new clients, and that's when I thought, okay, I'm going to do exactly the same that what I was doing before. I want to do something else, and that's when I started thinking about launching the brand. Today, I still work as a freelancer, still for Y Project, also work for Diesel and for Jacquemus.
Okay.
And in the past, I also freelanced for Jean-Paul Gaultier, for APC, and for Courrèges.
Yeah. Frankly, I was kind of amazed when I saw your CV. I was like, what? I mean, that does seem like an incredible amount of work for one person. But, yeah.
It is a lot of work. But I have to say, for my freelance clients, I design the jewelry. I think, of course, this takes less time than to design garments. It's a process that is also quite quick. I enjoy to be busy, and I have to say, today I'm still able to handle both activities, and I think it's actually a circle, because when I work I love working for the others as well, because I get to do things I wouldn't do for my brands. I get to accessorize garments. At the end of the season, there's a show. I get to meet a lot of people, work with a bigger team. So I want to keep this. And then let's hope that the brand will, of course, also become a bigger brand like this. But for now, it's a very nice balance.
Yeah, yeah. And Meryll, how did you go from Marc Jacobs to Dries Van Noten? Because that was your next big step, right?
So I had a couple of people I wanted to work for, and Dries was one of them, because I really appreciated, the shows and the aesthetic and just the overall vision of the brand. I was still in New York, and he just happened to give a talk at like the French Institute or something.
Okay.
Which I almost missed because I had to work late. Anyways, long story short, I ended up there, and afterwards, of course, there's a lot of Belgians. So, hey, you say hello, and there was a woman, with a beautiful black and white coat from Dries, and I went up to her and I said, "I love your coat. It's so beautiful. I've been wanting it forever." And she just happened to be kind of like being a business person at Dries. Her name is Sabine. She might be here tonight, I don't know. And then we started talking, and then a couple of months later, they called me back and just like to come in. And then I came in, and then I met Dries, and then 3 months later, I moved away from New York, and I was in Antwerp. So yeah, it was pretty
and it
a
just
natural
clicked.
development, I would say.
Were you planning to come back to Antwerp, or it just happened?
No, not at all. No, it really was the job who brought me back to Belgium in general, to be honest. I was really happy living abroad, so it was I never expected to come back necessarily.
I want to go off on a tangent a little bit, because I talk to a lot of young people, and they ask me like how to break through to the industry, and I tell them you have to meet people, and you can send 100 emails to someone, and they will go unanswered, and you can meet someone at a party or an event, and it could just happen. And this is such a great story that just confirms that you do have to, even in this digital world, you do have to go out and meet people.
You do, yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Very cool. So Tell us a bit more about your time at Dries. Like, what were you doing there? What were your responsibilities?
So at Dries, I was responsible for all the creation of the women's wear, let's say. So it was really nice because I really was like glued to the hip with Dries at all times. So we would spend a lot of hours together, which is great because you can see the master at work at all times. And it was, yeah, really interesting to see how independent house was working because at the time Mark was LVMH, so you always have like this bigger entity looming over your head that, you know. But there it was a very familial atmosphere. It is a different way of working. Learned a lot about thinking about the end client. You know, is the person going to be comfortable? Is the person going to be? Is the person going to need to wear this somewhere? Or just really thinking about context, which I find very interesting. Because in my previous experience, it was all about the Broadway show. Like, how big can we go? Bigger, bigger, bigger was always what he was saying.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed my time there, absolutely.
Yeah. Very cool. And Stephanie, so you've definitely created many incredible things for different brands. What gave you the impetus to start your own brand?
Of course, yeah, the idea was to propose something different, and working already for so many different clients, I know already a bit what's on the market. So it was an extra challenge, of course, to do something new. And I had this idea that I was going to present to a brand. And then somehow I thought, oh no, maybe it's not that it's too good to give it to somebody else, but it was something quite conceptual that maybe if you would give it to a fashion brand that does a show, like the idea would get a bit lost. And so this first idea was the canister hoops, which is the first design I did for my brand, which is a hoop with a container, and inside the container you can add a flower or a rolled banknote or a cigarette. So the whole idea of pushing the boundaries of accessories, saying now that an accessory is not there to accessorize your outfit, but you can actually accessorize your accessory. And once I start thinking about this, yeah, then I was like, okay, I have something for the brands. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. And the earrings you're wearing are a perfect example of accessorizing the accessory. Right?
This is another concept that came later with the brand. So this is actually based on a piercing, and on each ball there are the pins and the backings of an earring, giving it a little bit of a, I don't know, gothic vibe. Like if you see it from far, you don't really understand what's happening. So I also love to take inspiration from very traditional jewelry and then twist the codes.
Yeah. And was one of the reasons, I think you kind of touched upon, for starting your own brand, have you felt like accessories in a show usually take like a back seat to the clothes? Was that also one of the reasons where you thought, you know, I want to give accessories sort of a prime real estate?
I didn't think about this because, I mean, depending on which show for which brand, but sometimes actually the jewelry can have a huge impact. I just wanted to, like, I don't know, think a little bit more about the designs, make sure that it would be something that's not linked to a season. So if you would buy it now, and after 10 years, it would still look good. Where maybe with fashion, you think of the moment as it is, and then the season after, you kind of start all over again.
Right.
Me, I prefer to start building an image and codes so that the brand becomes kind of recognizable, and then build on this further.
Yeah. And Meryll, how did you decide to launch your own brand? Was that a difficult decision? You know, what led you to it?
Well, for me it was different. The desire was always there, even before the academy. So it was from a very early age that I felt like this would be something that I would enjoy doing. So I went through the academy those years, and then I didn't think it was smart to launch a brand straight out of school. I wanted to work for other people and see how they did it and see how, and like learn how to work with fabrics, and because at the end of the day, it's a very different world in the real world than in the academy. But then I got a bit carried away because I stayed 7 years at Mark and then 4 and so on at Dries, and I just had a good time. So at the moment, I had to stop myself and say, okay, it's time, it's now or never. Yeah, so it's and then I made the leap,
Yeah.
and I did it.
How scary was it on a scale from 1 to 10?
11. Yeah, no, really, it was like, I mean, it's a thing, like when you have a deep desire to do something and the desire is so big, I feel like it's the path of, biggest resistance that's probably the right path for you, but it's also the scariest because you have so much to lose, if it doesn't work out. So, I would say I was very, very scared. Yeah, absolutely.
And this is the question for both of you, but I'll start with Stephanie. How do you develop, your own aesthetic voice? Because it is indispensable to a designer to have their own aesthetic voice, to offer something new and original. And it's especially so hard today when so much has been done already. So much has been done already. How do you propose something new? I always think that on some level, people talk about the Antwerp 6, of course, the Japanese Revolution, etc. But I feel on some level it was so much easier for them because much less was done before them in aesthetic terms. And it's so much harder for subsequent generations of designers when so much has been done. That's why we see so much remixing, referencing, and so on. How did you develop your own aesthetic? What was important for you?
Well, I think it's key that, of course, your own aesthetics, it's very personal, so that you don't try to copy something that already exists. I also think we're still, every brand, it's still a work in progress. So when I started the brand, I had, some designs in mind, some image, the logo. But when I see now, 5 years later, so I designed 10 collections. The core of the brand is still really there. But you start a little bit, you adapt a little bit to the market as well, because, as a brand, at the end, you need to sell. So you get to know your customer a little bit better. But I think how you create your aesthetics, I think it's just something that you've been doing already for a long time, but maybe it didn't really get out because you were working for other people. So there you already mix a bit your taste, but keeping in mind the codes of another house. And I don't know, I think it takes time. I think it's a bit, when you go to school, I think after school I still had no idea. Though when I look back at what I did at school, I'm not very super proud of it, but I could already see some codes that I'm actually doing now. So I think it's something you have in you, I don't know, and that you develop. I don't know, what would you say, Meryll?
Yeah.
I think you answered it very well, Steph.
Yeah. And for you, Meryll, how did you develop your own aesthetic? What is your aesthetic? Like what do you envision when you design?
The thing is, it's such a process. It's such a long process, designing a collection. At best you have 6 months. At worst you have 3 months. But still, it's the same process, and it's a gradual process, and you don't really know what's happening. And then at the end, you end up with something. It's a bit exaggerated, but it kind of is. You start with the fabrics, and then you move on to shapes, and then styling, casting, anything that surrounds that moment. You kind of have to rely on what you feel inside. Like you said, it's ingrained in you. It's all the influences that you had all your life, whether it's from arts or movies or TV shows or whatever is your inspiration, that comes out at that time. It's there's no time to think deeply, and also the image of the fashion designer on the sketching board is really it's a thing of, maybe for some people it's a thing, but it's a thing of the past, I think. So it's really all about, getting those inner feelings out at that exact moment. But it's a process. over a collection, but also over time. Like the first collection that we did is about 4 years ago. It's not the same as what we're doing now.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Do you tend to build on your body of work? Like, is each successive collection like a continuation and development, or do you sometimes like, I'm just gonna start all new?
Well, the desire is always there, but then at the end of the day, if you're in a giant house, you can do this. You can start everything over, all new patterns, all new fabrics, everything. The thing is, when you're in a small house like us, you kind of have to build on certain things because you cannot make a whole set of new patterns every season. It's just not possible. So there's definitely like a process that goes on of like, what are we gonna take what are we gonna leave behind us? And it's a gradual process.
Yeah. And I always assume it's not easy to be an independent brand, especially these days that the environment is so challenging, especially that you have to compete with big conglomerates, with armies, who have armies of marketers and accountants with spreadsheets and so on. What are the challenges that you guys face in your work? What's hard for you, Stephanie?
I think today my biggest challenge is the time management, because I'm also invested with other brands. I have contracts with them that I need to respect, so they kind of always have my priority. So the brand always comes a little bit last. So thank God I have a good team that supports me, and I can handle things because I would be too busy doing something else. So now I'm a bit wondering, maybe I should, if I start dropping maybe 1 or 2 clients and maybe focus on the brand, maybe it would be easier to grow, because now we're still quite small, obviously. So this is something. And then, of course, because as a brand, we're designers, so what we want to do is to design amazing things, but you need to sell. It's a business. So the financial aspect to it is, that's something really, every season it's different. The wholesale is very unpredictable. So it's always how we're going to make money, how we're going to make more money, because with more, and then to invest that money, it's... it's hard, but on the other hand, it's so fulfilling to do this. Like the brand is really, it's like my baby. I would do everything for the brand, and
Great. And for you, Meryll, what are the biggest challenges that you face?
So for us, for me, the challenge is, it's going to sound crazy, but it's finding time to design. It's really, the design process really takes a back seat in the whole process, because there's always an emergency here with production or with something else, or we need to organize the showroom for Paris, or this or that, or anything. And this anything takes the upper hand on design, because that's more pressing. So what I'm trying to do now is to really set meetings with our collaborators and try to focus in these moments, because all the other days when this kind of specific meeting doesn't happen, it's like a day lost on working on any other stuff. So I think that's for me the most challenging part. Yeah, I would love to sit down or like take a week and just think, but it's just it's not happening. Or like even a half day.
Yeah.
So
Do you also find it hard to keep up with the fashion cycle, because it seems like it keeps speeding up?
The fashion cycle, it's absolutely nuts, and it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. However, I do think there is one interesting part about this crazy schedule, is that it forces you to like put something out. I think if I didn't have like a timeline that says, okay, it's Fashion Week now, you need to go to Paris, and you just keep going. You just keep going.
I feel like on some level, there is beauty in that imperfection, because you're like, well, it's never going to be perfect. At some point, you just have to let it out into the world.
But sometimes it's too much. But it's okay. It is what it is.
Yeah. And last question for you both. Where do you see yourselves in the ideal future? Stephanie, what would you like to do? Dream case scenario.
But I just recently designed a co-working space in Antwerp, and it was my first interior design project, and I really, really enjoyed it. So this is something I would like to continue to do. I would also like to start designing maybe objects or furniture, because I realized with the accessories that I design, I'm actually not that far from objects. I mean, I actually consider accessories more as an object than as a fashion item. So this is a road I would like to explore. With the brand, we're also working on a book, so that's going to take some time to come out. Actually, like with the brand, to actually do different things. Maybe of course, present a new collection every 6 months. But yeah, I don't know. I'm always eager to learn, and I always love a challenge. So actually, I don't know in 5 years what will be the. Voilà.
Yeah. And for you, Meryl?
I mean, it's. I guess I would like to see the brand growing, seeing the brand thrive, and being able to dress a lot of people. We would like to expand the line with accessories, bags, shoes, and perhaps jewelry. Who knows? And for us, it will be important to have our very first fashion show, because for now we're doing presentations in Paris that are bordering on a fashion show, but not really. So it would be nice to see this moment come to life. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for conversation. Thank you everyone for coming. I hope you guys enjoyed the talks, and let's have some champagne.
Bravo.